Beating Ebola, then fighting society. The continuing battle of Congo's Ebola survivors. In Mali, a dangerous upsurge in abuse by ethnic militias. And Kenyans bait the exotic leather industry with a fish skin alternative. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. We'll have those stories shortly. But first, Diane Rwigara, a major critic of Rwandan President Paul Kagame and his policies, has been cleared on charges including inciting insurrection and forgery. David Doyle of Reuters has the details of her acquittal.
Nurse Gloria Momeni-Kahino thought Ebola was the toughest fight of her life. When Gloria returned home, she tried to convince her neighbors to take precautions to protect themselves against the virus.
My neighbors didn't think the disease existed. They said it was a political ploy.
A little mix-up there, so let's see if we can get that report by David Doyle about Diane Rwigara of Rwanda. Okay, so let's proceed to the Democratic Republic of Congo, where in the 3 months since the Ebola outbreak began in the volatile east of that Democratic Republic of Congo, the virulent hemorrhagic fever has sparked debate in communities and even became a talking point for local politicians ahead of the December 23rd general elections. It is, they say, a war of information to convince locals to take precautions and to trust health officials as the death toll rises. So far, over 420 cases have been reported. Viewers Anita Powell accompanied Ebola awareness campaigners in eastern Congo and brings us this report.
Nurse Gloria Momeni-Kahino thought Ebola was the toughest fight of her life. When Gloria returned home, she tried to convince her neighbors to take precautions to protect themselves against the virus.
My neighbors didn't think the disease existed. They said it was a political ploy. But when they saw me, now they understand. They believe that the illness exists.
As the virulent hemorrhagic fever tears through this volatile corner of Congo, so do the rumors that Ebola is not real, that it is a way for the government to weed out a population that has historically mistrusted the regime in Kinshasa. Also, says the region's top health coordinator, the fight is hampered by chronic insecurity caused by shadowy, violent militant groups.
Community engagement is weakened because of the insecurity. The trust between us and the community is weakened by the insecurity.
Local political candidate Tembos Yutama says Ebola has become an unlikely campaign issue for him. He's urging anyone who will listen to trust the government's Ebola response, which he says he backs.
The illness has come at a bad moment, at the time of elections. The politicians are poisoning themselves. They are beginning to politicize this matter. For example, the illness was made in Kinshasa in a laboratory and brought here to exterminate us in the East.
Nurse Gloria says she can't wait to get back to work once her 42-day recovery period ends. It was at this small clinic, she said, that a woman came in from the neighboring town of Beni and died, infecting her and several colleagues. She says she's happy to be living, walking proof that Ebola can be defeated. And slowly, she says, she'll get everyone else singing the same tune. Anita Powell, VOA News, Butembo, Democratic Republic of Congo.
Well, a Congolese army colonel has been arrested in connection with the killing of 2 UN sanctions monitors, according to Timothy Mukuntu, the prosecutor overseeing the case. Mukuntu told Reuters on Friday that Colonel Jean de Dieu Mambweni had been arrested, but no formal charges had yet been filed. Mambweni is the first member of the security services detained over the case. Zaida Catalan, a Swede, and Michael Shep, an American, were killed in March 2017 while investigating reports of atrocities during an armed conflict in Democratic Republic of Congo's Kasai region between government forces and the Kamuna Nsampo militia. Well, now, ethnic militias in Mali have killed over 200 civilians and burned dozens of villages while committing communal violence in central Mali during 2018. That's according to the Human Rights Watch. In a report released Friday, the NGO says most victims have been ethnic Peul villages targeted by Dogon and Bambara self-defense groups for their alleged support of Islamist armed groups linked to Al-Qaeda. Human Rights Watch also says the violence has led to widespread displacement, hunger and looting of livestock, affecting civilians from various communities. Since 2015, Islamist armed groups have progressively increased their presence in central Mali, executing scores of civilians and government officials while committing other abuses. Their presence and recruitment of pastoralist Peul residents has inflamed tensions with the Bambara and Dogon communities and led to the formation of ethnic self-defense groups. Now, for more on the report, Corinne Dufka of Human Rights Watch joins me live via Skype. Welcome, Corinne.
Thank you.
Now, according to a report, you get the sense that so many of the groups that are fighting each other kind of formed at the time that they felt they were kind of defending their communities. What happened along the way?
That's correct. We're extremely concerned about this very alarming increase this year in civilians killed in the context of ethnic tension in central Mali. Now, what happened is that in 2015, the Islamists linked to Al-Qaeda moved from the north into the central regions where they concentrated their recruitment efforts on the Peul or Fulani ethnic group. And in response, in part to the sparse presence of the Malian security forces, as well as the proliferation of firearms, these groups have started to take security into their own hands and are killing, often underscored by the dynamic of collective punishment, the Peul civilians. For that part, the Islamists and some allegedly Peul civil defense groups have also killed some Dogon, but the majority of victims we have found have been the Peul or Fulani.
So when you look at it in the underlying causes, do we have any serious divisions amongst the Peul, the Dodo, let's say the three different communities that have been involved here? Do they have any issues?
There have always been tension over access to land and water between the agriculturists, being the Bambara and the Dogon, and then the pastoralists, being the Peul. But they were able to solve their problems without bloodletting. But since, again, the proliferation of arms and then the presence of these Islamist groups, it has increased dramatically the ethnic tension. We are calling on the government to step up their protection of vulnerable civilians and to disarm these abusive militias like they promised to do early in the year, and also, of course, to hold to account those involved in very serious atrocities, including massacres.
Now, you've indeed, I was noticing that you call on the government to protect all communities. Does the government at the moment have the capacity, first, to disarm all those groups and to protect the citizens there?
Well, in fact, they are very stretched. You'll recall that they are also involved in trying to pacify northern Mali, and then this problem arose in 2015. So the Malian army is stretched, to be sure, and they have said that they are urging the international community to provide more support to them to be able to better protect civilians. But we do think that they can do more. Civilians described members of these abusive militias driving around on motorcycles in defiance of a ban and driving in front of security force military posts and bases without any effort to disarm them. So we're calling on them to start to disarm these abuses immediately.
Well, thank you very much, Corinne, and we wish you safe travels until you come back.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's Corinne Dufka of Human Rights Watch. And now, Amnesty International is accusing South Sudan of ramping up its use of the death penalty, with 7 executions this year, including one who was a child when convicted of murder. Another 342 people are reportedly on death row. Presidential spokesman Aten Wekaten is rejecting Amnesty's statement, saying no one has been executed in South Sudan since 2011 and a moratorium has been placed on the practice since 2013. Aten also says the death penalty has remained on the statute books, adding, if you kill a person, you will be executed. Earlier this year, Amnesty reported that in 2017, 53 countries issued death sentences and 23 of them executed nearly 1,000 people, with the most executions occurring in China, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Pakistan. Now going down south, Zimbabwe's biggest food processing company says it has closed its wheat mills because it cannot import the commodity due to foreign currency shortages. The disturbing news is another sign of deep economic troubles in Zimbabwe, where both cash and many basic goods are in short supply. Columbus Mafunga has more from Harare.
National Foods notified suppliers that it is closing its wheat mills in Zimbabwe because it cannot get foreign currency to import the product. Speaking to VOA, CEO Michael Latchbrook said he hopes the government will help the company so that it can continue to work with wheat suppliers. News of the closures dampened the hopes of those looking for work with the milling company.
It is now really difficult because bread manufacturing companies like Lobel's will now close because they will be having no flour supplies. It is difficult. Now it's going to get worse. At the moment, money is hard to come by, and this is expensive. They should address the country's economy. Even this pending closure is because of a lack of money.
Zimbabwe's economy has relied on foreign currency since the country abandoned its dollar a decade ago amid hyperinflation. The Zimbabwe Farmers Union says the shortage of wheat isn't about the foreign currency shortages, but the government's controversial land reform program in the early 2000s. It displaced most white commercial farmers and rewarded black peasant farmers who had no experience and the resources to work the land. Under the program, productivity has dropped and yields have fallen from a record 2.5 tons a hectare to about 1 ton a hectare.
It's not as easy to produce wheat as we used to do. However, farmers in Zimbabwe, if they are supported adequately with the resources that are required, they can push the production levels to levels where the manufacturing capacity cannot even handle, because we used to do that.
For now, there are fears bread is going to disappear from store shelves and that price for wheat products will skyrocket, making the situation for ordinary Zimbabweans even more difficult. Columbus Mavunga for VOA News, Harare.
Well, a food factory in northern Kenya has found an interesting new way to provide a light and durable alternative to endangered animals. Sipo Sikwelia has the story.
These Kenyan models are wearing clothes made from leather, but it's not come from cows or even endangered species like crocodiles. This is fish leather, and it's come from here, the Victorian Foods factory in Kitale. The company works with 300 fishermen from Lake Turkana in Kenya's north, who provided with Nile perch. While the fish is filleted as normal, the skin is no longer discarded or sold as low-value food product.
Fish leather is it's considered exotic leather. It's like reptile leather, and you know the reptiles are endangered. We have crocodile leather or snake leather, which is endangered. But fish leather, it's a good alternative to that.
There are a number of advantages to using Nile perch.
Very tough.
The large fish's skin provides the second strongest type of leather, whilst also being far lighter than cow leather. Victorian Foods has been working with the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization as part of its Blue Growth Initiative, which aims to add value and increase employment in the fisheries sector. The UN is also promoting blue fashion and challenged designer Jamil Waliji to create garments for a show in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi.
I wanted to bring out a combination that has never been done before, to bring out a totally new image and a new look to how we look at leather products.
Victorian Foods' Ambani says the material has been used to make shoes, jackets, belts, handbags and purses. And it's not just fashionistas who are getting hooked. He says there's also interest in the automobile industry in using fish leather for car interiors.
Well, Sesipo Sikwelia of Reuters with that report. Now, I want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. Find me on Twitter at viewer Vince McCory. Still ahead on Africa 54, Texas bids President George H.W. Bush a final farewell. But first, a look at Friday's headlines.
Tout à fait, très confiante. Les États sont en très grand nombre, continuent de tenir parole. Ils se sont entendus le 13 juillet à New York après des négociations.
Fear and control by the state.
Dan Rigera, a major critic of Rwandan President Paul Kagame and his policies, has been cleared on charges including inciting insurrection and forgery. David Doyle of Reuters has the details of our acquittal.
All smiles from this critic of Rwandan President Paul Kagame on Thursday, after she was acquitted by the country's High Court on charges including inciting insurrection and the forging of documents. Diana Rigara has repeatedly accused Kagame of stifling dissent
And control by the state.
and has criticized his Rwandan Patriotic Front's unyielding grip on power since it assumed control after ending the country's 1994 genocide. Her attempt to stand against Kagame for the presidency in August 2017 was blocked after she was accused of submitting forged signatures from supporters. A month later, she and her mother were arrested and released on bail in October. Rigara's mother has also been cleared on charges of inciting insurrection and discrimination. The 37-year-old accountant's acquittal follows the freeing from jail earlier this year of another Kagame critic. Opposition leader Victoire Ingabire was released by Kagame using his powers of pardon. She had served 6 years of a 15-year sentence. Ingabire has been attending Rigara's trial. Both women's legal woes began after they expressed interest in Kagame's job. The veteran leader has won international praise for presiding over a peaceful and rapid economic recovery in Rwanda. But he's also faced mounting criticism for what human rights groups say are widespread abuses, a muzzling of independent media, and suppression of political opposition.
Well, that was David Doyle of Reuters with that report. Now, America's 41st President, George H.W. Bush, took his final journey on Thursday in the state that launched his political career and where he is now finally laid to rest. Viewers Ken Farabaugh reports on how those in the state of Texas participated in the final ceremonies to honor and remember their former commander-in-chief and war hero.
To Donna Platt, whose Houston home is not far from his, President George H.W. Bush was more than just a president.
Very nice. We would run into him, and not just me, all the neighbors, in the bank or in the grocery store. He liked to go to the grocery store, and it was just like saying hi to another neighbor.
The final return of the 41st President of the United States to West Texas, which he represented in Congress in the 1960s, and the place he called home over the last 3 decades, was a bittersweet and bipartisan occasion.
I feel like it was a historical event. He was the President of the United States, and it was an honor to take part of this this moment.
Even though Sylvia Epperson says she did not vote for Bush, she still waited nearly 2 hours to board a shuttle bus that carried her to St. Martin's Episcopal Church, where she and thousands more paid their final respects.
Only 45 men have been the President of the United States thus far. They are charged with a tremendous task. It is something that should not be taken lightly, and I don't think President George H.W. Bush took it lightly.
A great leader. President Bush was and is a member of the VFW, and we honor all our brothers and sisters who are veterans.
Carl Dry, a local commander of the Veterans of Foreign Wars post in the town of Navasota, was among thousands who braved the wet and soggy weather to bid a personal farewell to the former commander-in-chief of the U.S. military.
Once in a lifetime event as far as I'm concerned.
The journey of Bush's flag-draped coffin through Navasota by train is a rare event, the first such trip in almost 50 years. It attracted large crowds along the railroad tracks.
Since this is such a great event for our little town, we felt honored and obligated to come and pay our respects to him and his family.
This great event was also the reason 11-year-old Layla Johnson skipped school in Denton, Texas, and traveled to Navasota with her family to be an eyewitness to history, which left her with mixed emotions.
It's kind of sad because people honor him with great respect, and he gave us back that respect by working for us.
President Bush now joins his wife Barbara and their daughter Robin on the grounds of the President George H.W. Bush Library and Museum in College Station, Texas, his final resting place. Kane Fairbaugh, VOA News, Navasota, Texas.
Thank you, Ken. Now, Yemen's warring factions met Thursday in Sweden for talks that could be a step forward, ending their violent 4-year-old conflict. The United Nations-backed meeting is the first in 2 years between the Saudi-backed government and the Iran-backed Houthi rebels. As viewers Laditza Hoke reports, these new talks are taking place amid international outrage about a growing humanitarian crisis in Yemen.
Since the fighting began, at least 10,000 people in Yemen have been killed, about 2 million have been displaced, and about 12 million are suffering from severe hunger, according to the United Nations. Those who have not been able to flee face danger all the time.
I was at sea fishing, and on my way back I was walking alongside a friend, while my brother was following behind. I stepped on a mine that tore off my leg and threw me to the ground. My friend and my brother came out unharmed.
The sad story did not end there.
My friend ran to inform my father, who came to my rescue. But when he approached me, he stepped on a mine and lost his life before my eyes.
Even as the peace talks commenced, fighting continued around the city of Taiz, south of the contested Red Sea port of Hodeidah.
Clashes near Taiz are intensifying, and each side increased the number of attacks since the talks have started. If the negotiations have achieved anything, it's that they've made the situation more catastrophic for the residents of Taiz and have not liberated them from anything.
UN envoy for Yemen, Martin Griffiths, said the goal of the Rimbo meeting is to set a framework for talks on a political solution for Yemen.
Of course we want a de-escalation, and we'll be talking about it in very specific terms while we're here. But we will continue to talk together about the prospects for a peaceful solution, frankly, irrespective of what happens on the battleground.
On the first day of the talks in Sweden, the two sides agreed to swap thousands of prisoners. Other issues on the agenda are the control of Sana's international airport, the status of the Hodeidah port, and humanitarian access to the civilians trapped by the conflict. The UN envoy says the success of the talks is entirely in the hands of the warring parties. Zlatica Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
Welcome back to Africa 54, and here's what's trending. Anelia Myberg is a cancer survivor and the first in Australia to have a 3D printed jaw surgically implanted. The surgery takes more than 5 hours rather. Now, the customized new jaw has a titanium frame that can carry bone grafts and then allow teeth to be implanted. After inserting the 3D printed jaw, surgeons then performed a skin graft from the patient's arm. While staying in Australia, recent rain may have turned parts of New South Wales green, but the harsh reality is that the drought continues to bite. But one farmer on the south coast has found a possible long-term solution to the lack of feed for his stock: a hydroponic fodder system. Alan Smith has been growing grass from barley seed and believes climate change will force more farmers to grow stock feed indoors. The barley seeds are heated from a mat underneath and drip water every hour. After 7 days, the grass is rolled up and fed to the pigs on his small farm. Smith says when the rain returns and the barley grass is no longer needed, the system can grow leafy greens for the household. Well, and finally, superheroes, supervillains, and crowds of fans. Tokyo's third Comic-Con was the biggest yet. More than 40,000 fans got a chance to see some A-list celebrities during the 3-day event, which has a Japanese twist. The event featured a special memorial to the iconic comic book writer Stan Lee, who died in November. With Marvel, Lee helped to create or co-create such heroes as Spider-Man, X-Men, Iron Man, Thor, Black Panther, and Ant-Man. Japan is the birthplace of manga and anime, which has helped influence the comic book genre and found a new marketplace in the US and Canada. And that's what's trending today. Now we'll end our show with Renice, a Cameroonian artist who has just released her hot new video and single, On Dit Quoi. From all of us in Washington, have a
Welcome to English in a Minute. This expression sounds like a violent way of eating, but it's actually not always about eating.
Here is your Russian book, Anna. Thanks for letting me borrow it.
Oh, are you done with level 1 already?
Yeah, I finished last week, and I've already finished level 2.
Wow, you are really sinking your teeth into learning Russian.
Well,